You know, if you only gain a bushel or two, is something really worth doing? That's a question we hear all the time. So instead of looking at it as, well, it was only a bushel or two, it's no big deal, we try to look at things in the form of return on investment.
It goes back to something that our dad told us growing up. He just said, look, I don't care what I spend, I just care what I make at the end of the year. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, we don't want to just go throwing money around thinking, oh, commodity prices are high, we're just going to spend whatever. We want to look at every individual thing we're doing on the farm and say, does that make us money year in and year out? Now, it's not always going to pay. Just like any investment out there, any good investment, it's probably not going to be a sure thing. If it was, well, heck, everybody would do it. But if you can make money on it 80, 90, 95% of the time, it's something you've definitely got to consider.
All right, so how much money do you really need to make on an investment? You know, you look at many
of the crop inputs
as we're doing in the early spring. We're putting them out 6 months in advance of when we're going to get a crop. So you're putting it out there just hoping that 6 months down the road, there's going to be a payback on these things. So you have to look back at some historical data and then also use some common sense on your farm.
Okay, well, let's just run through a very quick and simple example. Let's just say there was something you could spend $5 on the farm and you get 3 bushels of corn back for doing this particular investment. It increases your yield 3 bushels. And let's say corn is worth only $5, only $5. Okay, so you get $15 back from a $5 investment. So net, you come out with $10 an acre, all right? If you have 1,000 acres then, that's $10,000. So that's one way you can look at it. Here's another way you can look at it. You got a net gain of $10 divided by the $5 that you invested. That is a net return on investment of 200%. Okay, that's great. But let's take it a step further. If let's say you only invested your money for 6 months on this $5 by the time you harvested that corn and sold it and got your money back. All right, if it's only invested for 6 months, well, now you have to double that return. And now in effect, you've gotten 400% APR, net return on investment. That's awfully good.
That's not bad. That's better than you can do in the stock market or certainly at the bank.
Yep, so I've given you 3 different ways to look at it. Here's the 4th, and this is, for me, the most important way. If, let's say, this took me 20 extra hours during planting season to do this particular job, I divide how many dollars I made in total, which was $10,000, divided by 20 hours, and that's a job that paid me $500 an hour. Now, that's something that I am willing to do. I'm willing to put my time into that. How often are you looking at this, though? I mean, are you running the numbers all the time? That's all I'm getting at. This is literally something I think about every single day. Is the job I'm doing going to pay me $500 an hour? Is it going to pay me $100 an hour? Or is it going to pay me 50 cents an hour? I really honestly think about that all the time. And I would encourage you to do the same thing, because if you want to make money on the farm, you've got to have jobs that pay well.
Well, with everything you're doing on the farm, you have to think about this, because I know Brian threw out $500 an hour for one job, and you say, okay, he's just exaggerating a little bit. No, he's not. That really happens every day. And you look at what you're doing today, right now on your farm, and you say, well, what am I going to do that's going to pay me $100 or $500 an hour? You have to analyze that on your farm. Maybe that's working on your equipment today, or maybe that's working on your books a little bit more.
Yeah, but
out in the field, there's so many decisions you're making, and there are many of them that can make you this much or more.
Yeah, but it's not just in the field. You have the choice today to work on your equipment or haul grain or go to a seminar where you might get some valuable ideas for your farm. What's the $500 job there? Well, you know how much hauling grain is going to pay you.
Exactly. It's not going to pay you any more today than it is tomorrow.
Yep. Now, working on equipment, that actually might be a $100 an hour job. But the point is, you've got to look at all these things and analyze it. You have to learn more. You have to have more knowledge if you're going to move forward and make improvements on your farm.
Well, there's certainly a lot of ways to improve the profitability on your farm. The important thing is analyzing what you're doing, looking at it from a return on investment standpoint, and perhaps even on a how many dollars per hour basis it's going to pay you. And when you find those things that pay well, do more of those. It sounds simple, but there are a lot of us that aren't following that advice.
Well, speaking of advice, we'll give you a little advice on our Weed of the Week. It's coming up next.